I have the pleasure of introducing to you a very unique individual. Yuval is an Emmy Award-winning actor, director, and filmmaker, like it's not enough, who has won over 100 international film festival awards and has played roles in shows and productions with ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, Hulu, FX, HBO, Comedy Central, Disney, and Sony, including Feud, Madam Secretary, What Would You Do, Beauty and the Beast, The Michael J. Fox Show, Days of Our Lives, and many others. I enjoy reading this. One of his newest shows on air will air on FX and Hulu at the end of this year. He appears on broadcast news programs in the US, Israel, internationally as a news commentator, and writes articles for international publications, including I-24 News in Israel, Fox, NBC, CBS, Jerusalem, Post, Times of Israel, Out Magazine, and many online news platforms. He is an active leader in Israeli, American, and international Jewish communities, focusing on causes pertaining to Jewish, Zionist, LGBTQ civil rights and social justice. When you see how nattily he is dressed, I made the mistake of referring to it as LGBTQ, but whatever. He collaborates with national and global organizations as a speaker, advisor, workshop leader, and creates film and social media content with them. He advises dozens of governmental and non-governmental organizations. He also works to represent and help rescue LGBTQ people out of dangerous and life-threatening situations internationally, primarily from countries that follow Sharia law. And I posed a question to him from one of the first speakers we ever had here at Aspen Counterpoint about 13 years ago, Phyllis Chesler. Phyllis Chesler was one of the founders of the feminist organization and the women's movement in this country. And at that meeting 13 years ago, said that she was being ostracized from the feminist community because she kept standing up and saying, number one, why is the feminist community in this country silent about what's happening to women under Sharia law? There's never a peep of them. And also, she was being ostracized because she was a supporter of the State of Israel. Anyway, Yuval's goal is to entertain, uplift, and inspire, guides his creative work and his social and political activism as he motivates people within the pursuit of greater representation, inclusion, acceptance, and celebration of self and community identity. Please welcome with me the natty Yuval.
I think that you should consider an additional career as a publicist. That was really well done. I appreciate it.
Gynecology is enough.
Isn't gynecology wasn't enough? PR would be great. Everybody needs good PR. Thank you for that introduction. It was also very nice chatting with you earlier, Alan, before this event started. I mentioned to Alan that this morning was a little bit of a challenging morning. Every day for me is, some people might call it a work day. I call it an effort day because I don't actually get paid for all of my advocacy efforts, most of them. I just do it because I can. And this morning, I was involved in I signed more NDAs than I can count, in an operation to help rescue LGBTQ people and a few women out of Gaza, which anybody who is aware of the situation in Gaza, or Gaza as we call it in English, understand that it's a difficult place to, let's just say, to be liberal, open, out, and living a life that one would wish to as an LGBTQ person or a free-thinking woman. So this morning I was, and I'm going to speak very openly with all of you. Here's a trigger warning. I might trigger you with some of the things I say, and I'm not going to hold back with any stories or specific words. My morning today started by being called a faggot kike by a Muslim man in America who was also involved in dealing with the situation of rescuing these specific people out of Gaza. But he was disturbed by the mere fact that I was involved in this operation as well because of my identity. Now, as a Jewish people, we know that we have 3,000 years of people being against us, people trying to reframe our narrative. And it's a time that right now where our narrative once again is being changed by other people. And we're afraid of it. And we talk about anti-Semitism ad infinitum. We talk about the people who hate us, the people who are against us. We talk about our enemies. We talk about our enemies, what they're saying about us. And through doing all of that, we're also allowing them to dominate our narrative because we're speaking about the narrative that they're sharing about us. That is a very dangerous thing for us to do. So, however I was referred to early this morning, didn't stop and will never stop my advocacy and my passion and goals to help anybody who needs to be helped, whether they're Jewish or not, whether they're LGBTQ or not, whether they're part of my communities or merely a neighboring community that needs to be helped. That is a Jewish principle. That is a Zionist principle, and there is no way to remove Zionism from Jewish identity, from Jewish peoplehood. Zionism is being rebranded by other people, and we're allowing that to happen. So, when we hear people try to rebrand Zionism, which truly, here's a trigger warning, especially for those of you who might consider yourself on the right or conservative, Zionism is a progressive woke movement. Zionism is an inclusive movement. Zionism, just like Judaism, is an ism. It is a movement that is trying to include and focus on progress and focus on the way people want to be seen and want to be represented, saying, these are the Jewish people. We must be able to self-actualize with a connection to our history, to our peoplehood, and connection to our homeland. Even when we talk about Ancestry.com and 23andMe and all these genetic studies, it'll say, oh, you're this percentage Eastern European, you're this percentage Scandinavian, you're this percentage East African, you're this percentage Indian, you're this percentage Jewish. They will never say you are this percentage Muslim, you are this percentage Christian, you are this percentage Buddhist, you're this percentage Baha'i. So we have a genetic code. We come from a people who come from a specific part of the world. So our Zionism, about the self-actualization of the Jewish people with a connection to our ancestral homeland, is essential within our Judaism. But we're seeing many of our Jewish sisters and brothers or brethren who are confused by that connection to Israel. Confused by how we can define what Israel means for us or for them, or even if it should be part of our Jewish identity and our Jewish peoplehood. Israel cannot be extracted from our Jewish identity or our peoplehood. We're here in the Jewish Community Center, in a synagogue. We, amongst us, are people who practice Judaism, maybe do Shabbat, or come for Shabbat services, or go to the high holidays. Maybe some of you are the high holiday Jews, you only come for the big ones. Throughout it all, in our prayer books, we have prayers about the land of Israel. I travel a lot for work, for my productions and entertainment and media, but also for the speeches that I give, for the workshops that I lead. And last week there was a series of 3 in a row. People were complaining, oh my gosh, it's raining, what's going to happen, are people going to show? Hundreds still came and it was lovely, but people were complaining about the rain. And all of a sudden I was struck with how within my Israeli and my Jewish identity, I was raised with the childhood song, Geshem Geshem Hashemayim, Kol Hayom Tipot Mayim, ve'anachnu michilot kapayim, which means rain, rain from the sky, drops come down, and we respond with clapping, with applause. But here in America, we say, rain, rain, go away, come again another day. In Israel, we want the rain. We need the rain. Shabbat services, especially if you go for the longer services, have prayers about the land, about the health of the land. We cannot separate Israel from our Jewishness. And we're facing a time when many of our Jews are trying to say, well, I don't like what is happening in Israel. Or we hear the squad, for those of you who follow what is happening in our political situation, where Rashida Tlaib said that Israel is a racist state. She said a lot worse about it, as has Yuval and AOC, and all of these people. That's very dangerous when our political leaders are sharing a false narrative, and it's even more dangerous when our own people are embracing that narrative out of fear of being uncool. I am truly not just progressive because I'm a Zionist, but I'm truly a left-leaning, liberal, progressive, woke, socio-political activist. But I'm a progressive, not a faux-gressive. That is what has happened within the progressive movement, where we're seeing faux-gressives, and I invite you to use the term. I made it up, I think I made it up, and if I didn't, who knows who I heard it from, but use it as well. Because there is a true progressive who does believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion for all. We're facing a time within my own movements, even within the LGBTQ movements that I'm active in, where people are conflicted by my Jewish identity, whereby, as I get accused far too regularly of being obviously Zionist and openly Jewish. Digest that for a second. That's a quote. I know your daughter. We grew up together since first grade. Right? In this Jewish education that I had in my youth, I never imagined that I would have to advocate for our people the way I am now. I thought we must remember the past. Izko, always remember, never forget. When we would talk about what happened during the Shoah, what happened to our Jews of Europe, and what happened during the Farhud, what happened to the Jews of the Arab world. When we say we must remember our history and our lineage, because there are too many, far too many, who didn't have the chance to survive, and how to make sure that history gets passed on. I never thought that I would be fighting for us the way I am now. I thought I would be fighting for retaining our stories. So, I don't know how Jewy I need to get here, because we're at the JCC, but I'll try to be as Jewy as I can. Actually, I shouldn't say try, because, well, as Yoda, I don't know if there are any Star Wars fans here, as Yoda says, there is no try, there is only do or do not. Please tell me that there are some Star Wars fans here, maybe not, maybe it was just one, because I got one giggle. I'm also a bit of a geek. Yoda, if you followed Star Wars, he was an old school Yiddishkeit Jew. Even the way that he spoke was in the Yiddishkeit mannerisms. So, I'm not going to try to be Jewy, I'm just going to practice being Jewy. What am I saying? I'm saying that whenever we can, we must practice our Jewishness. It is a practice. A Jewish religion, a Jewish faith, a Jewish education, a Jewish form of thought, a Jewish peoplehood. How do we practice it? We don't try to be Jewish. And the truth is, there are those of us who try to not be Jewish. How to not be so Jewish so we can blend in? If we're Ashkenazi or Sephardi, or if we're a Jewish person of color, or if we're part of an intermarriage, or if we're dealing with places where people make Jewish jokes and Jewish comments, which are still totally acceptable, even though the counterparts are not acceptable if it is about an LGBTQ person like me, or a black person, or a Latino person, or a refugee, or a woman. How have we allowed these comments about Jews to proliferate? It's because we're focusing on the narratives of other people. How do we create our own narratives? It's by saying we are a people who should be celebrated. We are cool. We are sexy. We should say that about ourselves, because it's true. We're an appealing
people, and we have worked hard. We are resilient. We don't only embrace the narrative of victimhood, we embrace the narrative of resilience, of still being alive. We have over 3,000 years of other people trying to kill us, to destroy us, to rape and pillage us, to have us assimilate into their cultures, to practice erasure, to erase who we are. So how do we not try to be Jewy? How do we practice being Jewy? How do we practice being Jewish? How do we wear our identity on our sleeve? Which is an expression I struggle with, because that expression was born out of the Nazi era, where we were forced to wear our identities on our sleeves. Herzl, as many of us know, founder of Zionism, said, "Im tirtzu ein zo agada." If you want it, it's not an haggadah, it's not a dream, it's not an elusive dream. We speak about the dream of what we wish to be. Even here, as American Jews, we speak about the American dream. The only way that the American dream exists is while we're asleep. How can we turn that dream into a reality? And once again, it goes back to the concept of being Jewish. Ma'aseh, your actions, are so very important. We focus on the Torah. We focus on tzedakah, giving, donating. We focus on ma'aseh. We focus on the actions. So how can we take the Jewish peoplehood, the Jewish identity, the Jewish educational system, the Jewish philosophies, and turn it into a reality, move beyond the fantasy? Because we're facing stereotypes, where people have these stereotypes of who we are, of how we are. That's the fantasy Jew that they imagine. So what do we do with a stereotype? We don't embrace the stereotype. We are not a stereotype, but a stereotype is put upon us. So it's up to us to face that person and either prove that their stereotype is correct or counsel, show them that it's wrong and correct. In the era of cancel culture that we're facing, which I don't support cancel culture, I'm a free speech activist and advocate, and if somebody says something wrong, then I will practice counsel culture, and consequence culture. There are consequences for what you say, and there are consequences for what you do. Now, all of these people who are against us, we can say there are so many out there, but I firmly believe that 90% of the people on this planet are our friends and are our future friends. People who don't yet know that they can be our friends. But the small percentage are out there loud and proud. I was recently in Florida because the Goyim Defense League, if any of you are familiar with the GDL, is a vehemently anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, Jew-hating organization, along with the National Socialist Movement, a neo-Nazi movement here in the United States, which, because of our laws, are able to march and parade, just like I was doing during Pride Month. They're able to do it openly and freely. So I found out that the GDL and the National Socialist Movement were going to have a march in Ormond Beach, Florida. Never been to Ormond Beach, didn't quite know where it was. Found out it was near Orlando and near the raceway. It's like, okay, I'm going to hop a flight. I'm going to go there. Let me see who's going to be there, and reach out to all kinds of other organizations, Jewish and non-Jewish, to say, this is happening. Do you want to be on the right side of history or the wrong side of history? We have the ability to counter-protest. What ended up happening, word got out, and we were there in greater numbers than the National Socialist Movement and the GDL. We informed the police. We informed the media. Then the police informed me that I was trending on Gab, which is not a place you want to trend. Gab is a social media platform which a lot of these hate groups utilize because there's no censorship on there. So they said, Yuval, you need to be prepared. These people are writing about you and have included you in a list of 130 prominent American Jews. I was like, should I take that as a compliment? They laughed and they said, not so much, because they listed your name, your phone number, your email, and your address. And I'm like, okay, that's not so good. But I still showed up. Because I will refuse to let somebody silence me, but I will reach my hands out to our people and to our allies to say, this is what's happening, I need your help. This is who I am, these are my pronouns. Do you respect me for who I am and my identity? Yes? Great, join me because I need your help. We have been an insular people for a long time, which is how we have survived. We help ourselves. But then we move beyond that and we help our neighbors. We cannot be afraid to ask our neighbors for help, either privately or very publicly. And that's where council culture and consequence culture can come into play. If I ask for your help and you deny, I can say, well, I was asking them for help, but they didn't come. Are you able to come and help? Not that I have to shame those other people, but I also can. Within the civil rights and social justice movements that we're seeing, we see Jews at the forefront. Throughout the history of civil rights and social justice movements on this planet, we have seen Jews at the forefront of these movements. But when we need that help, we don't see as many people coming for us in solidarity. So just like the plus of the LGBTQ plus movement, it's the plus of allyship. We need to have the plus with our peoplehood. Jew plus, the plus of our allyships. Yad Vashem recognizes the allies from the Holocaust and plants trees for the righteous Gentiles, the righteous among the other nations who did things for us, and we plant a tree in their honor. We should continue to do that, whether we plant a tree in Israel at Yad Vashem or here, plant an aspen tree. Let the person know who comes to your dinner party or something and said something that you support and said, I was so touched by this. I'm planting a flower in my garden in your honor. It's a small little thing that's a token of appreciation of somebody who set up for you. So part of the fight against those who are against us is this celebration and using self-celebration, identity celebration, community celebration as a form of increasing pride, as a form of resistance. Just like the Black civil rights movement in the United States, they needed a time when they said Black is beautiful, to say we can't only focus on what is happening by white supremacists and the KKK and people saying this and that about us. We have to say what we want about us. And the Black is beautiful movement was so successful that we need to take a page out of their guidebook and do it ourselves. Jew is beautiful. Jewish is wonderful. And put it on our t-shirts and walk around with the Magen David. Although, when I was in New York, I live both in New York City and in Washington, D.C. I was in New York, part of a demonstration outside of the UN for Nakba Day. It's the morning of the creation of the State of Israel. And they had an event at the United Nations. So, gathered people to have a protest or an information demonstration, as I called it. And as I was just walking there, having my Magen David outside on my t-shirt that I was wearing, two separate people criticized me for it. One said, fucking Jew, as he walked by me. The other one was a Jewish woman who said, you really shouldn't wear that. You should put it under your shirt because somebody might do something to you. And I said, well, interesting, because 2 blocks away, somebody did say something. She said, see, you have to hide it. That made me feel worse than the person who walked by and said, fucking Jew. We're hiding who we are? I was gifted with a life. My grandparents were heroes and survivors of the Holocaust. who fought to survive before the Shoah, during the Shoah, and after the Shoah. They fought to create, in an instrumental way, the state of Israel. My parents fought for the state of Israel, lost their friends, their cousins, their small families became smaller. And I cannot consider hiding when somebody else fought for my life and for my existence. And we need to do the same thing, to fight for our existence. Many people talk about fighting back against the hate. I don't like that term, fighting back. I like the term fighting forward. That is progressive Zionism. That is Zionism, and that is Judaism. We focus on the next generation. לשתול עץ שאף פעם לא נשב בצל שלו. To plant a tree under which is shade we will never sit, but the next generation will. That is what we are about. We are not about hiding who we are, and we cannot hide who we are. Pride and celebration is a form of resistance. And what is the narrative of the Jewish people that we want to share with the next generations? Is it, oh, they hate us, 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 they hate us? What kind of identity are they going to have? They're going to feel marginalized? They're going to feel victimized? Or can we say, let's talk about the Jewish successes? We know the small percentage of Jewish people on this planet, right? The 0.2%, talk about it quite a bit. Well, in the last 100 or so years, 25% of the Nobel Prize winners were Jewish. Amazing. In the last 100 years, we fought to be included in some of the best universities on this planet because we weren't allowed to go there before. And we got there, and we excelled. We weren't allowed to own land in Europe and in many parts of the Arab world, so what did we become? Sometimes by choice and sometimes because the Catholic Church told us we would be in business. We were tax collectors. We also became philosophers and teachers and doctors and lawyers and these professionals and philosophers. And we excelled. We should be proud of that and celebrate that. And not only in the past, we need to find the Jews who are doing something good and say, this is so great. Because when a Jew does something bad, like the whole Bernie Madoff story we were talking about that the other day, so many of us are like, oh my God, what are they going to say about us? Look, this Jewish person did something horrible. Or I just forgot his name, the guy that had the cryptocurrency, the young guy, what's his name? Bankman-Fried. Even I thought, oh God, what are they going to say about the Jews now? And I said, well, how do we counter that? When one of us does something bad, we need to promote the good that we do. So this morning, when I was criticized for helping LGBTQ and women Palestinians flee Gaza, and I was criticized for being a Jew, how do we promote our Jewish identity, that this is part of who we are, that we must help our neighbors? It's ingrained in our educational system. Last year, I had a great career success. I won an Emmy Award, and it was wonderful. How exciting. I didn't think I was going to win, and I won, and it was great. And I was happy just being nominated. I thought, oh, this is going to go at the top of my resume, being nominated. And the same evening that I won, that it was starting to get put on social media, the hateful messages were pouring in. That the only reason Yuval David won is because he's a Jew. Because the Jews run the government, the media, the banks. I mean, I wish that was true. Because if that was true, Seth Rogen wouldn't be the guy who represents Jews. We would find like the most sexy person ever, right? We would share our stories so much more, and we wouldn't have to talk about the challenges that we have so much if we really ran the media and the governments. Now, speaking of governments, let's go back to Israel, because we're in a challenging time. We're in a challenging time in the United States with what's happening politically, but we're also in a very challenging time in Israel with what is happening politically. So Today also was quite a day because, again, trigger warnings, you might agree with my beliefs and you might not. And that's okay, we can talk about it. We can talk about it even during our Q&A or later. Netanyahu is trying to remove the ability to have what is called I'm thinking in Hebrew, in English, a reasonableness doctrine or a reasonableness standard, which is a halachic, an important element of halacha and Jewish law, where if somebody declares something as a law, we need to be able to counter it. Just like in all of our religious texts, this rabbi said that, but that rabbi said this, and this was a school of thought, and that was a school of thought, 3 Jews, 5 opinions. We've had that throughout our existence. The Israeli government was designed the same way, focusing on halakha, but also being inspired by British law and the legal systems of many Western countries. So the loss of the Supreme Court, or the loss of the power of the Supreme Court in Israel, I fear, would be extremely dangerous in Israel. Again, some of you might disagree with me. But we need to have a system of checks and balances within our peoplehood, where we can talk about our opinions, and that is part of the democratic process. Before I diverge, or instead of diverging too much in my beliefs about Netanyahu and this very right-wing government that we have, my point is, here, the Jews in America, where 39% of the Jewish people on the planet live here in America, we are held to a double standard because of what happens in Israel, even though we live here. Now, I'm Israeli and American. I vote, I pay taxes in both countries. But there are many Jews here in America who are not Israeli citizens, who don't pay taxes in Israel, who don't know much about the political system, and are held to this standard because of what is happening in Israel, where people are masking their anti-Semitism and calling it anti-Israel, or are calling it anti-Zionism. We need to be able to defend our peoplehood, even if we have a lack of information. If you know how to defend yourself, you know how to defend your family. If you know how to speak about yourself, you know how to speak about the people who love you and who connect to you. If you know how to speak about yourself, your family, the people who connect with you, your communities, you know how to speak about your people. So we cannot shy away from difficult conversations. Take a breath. Take 2. Listen to what they're saying. And then say, okay, I hear that you're saying this. I hear that you feel this about me because I'm Jewish, or because I'm Israeli, or because I'm Zionist, or whatever part they're criticizing. And say, first let me tell you who I am. And hopefully they'll have a respectable conversation with you. The problem is there are many people who are excluding us from that table. I firmly believe that we all have a place at the table, even if the table includes people who are against us or don't like us. Because if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. How do we force our chair to that table? I deal with this challenge constantly within the movements that I'm part of, within the progressive movement. And so then sometimes I go to the conservative movements and I say, okay, this is what's going on. And many times they delight in hearing about the challenges of the progressive movement. I say, but these are my challenges within the conservative movement. Let me be able to share all of me all the time. I'm not going to cut away any part of my identity in order to appease you. Within the work that I have as an actor, as a filmmaker, in media and entertainment, I've been told sometimes that I'm too Jewish, or that I'm not Jewish enough. When I first started my career, people suggested that I change my name because it's not mainstream enough. Yuval David, even if I don't pronounce it Yuval David, if I let it be Yuval David, it might be a hindrance to my career. And I refused to do that because my name meant something to me. My name was given to me by the people who gave me life. So how do we find elements like that we can find ourselves empowered by? We're facing this time of darkness, this time of we can call it a wilderness. And in Bamidbar, in the Bible, we talk about what the wilderness, what happened in Bamidbar, in the desert. And there were people who traveled through for 40 years, and they traveled and they never made it to the promised land. But What happened to them during that time? What could they have controlled during that time? And what does that allegorical tale tell us about the challenges of going through the wilderness where we don't exactly know what is going to happen? And I think the allegorical takeaway from that is we need to allow ourselves to be the wilderness, to be the people who are changing, to choose the version of ourself that understand the version of ourself that we were, the version of ourselves that we are now, and the version of ourselves that we want to be. That happens in a wilderness when you're challenged. And for all of you Aspenites here in Colorado, especially the skiers, I'm an avid skier. So I embrace the challenge. I think about when I do the double black diamond runs, I think about my form, the same form that is taught to the beginners that is reminded to the expert skiers. How to lean into the challenge. I can't lean away from it. If I lean away from it, I'm going to lose control and I'm probably going to hurt myself. But if I lean into the challenge, I embrace the wilderness, especially when I ski through the trees, which we had a great time doing this winter. When you ski through the trees, you don't think, oh, there's a tree, there's a tree, there's a tree. You think, there's the path around the tree, there's the path around the tree. Oh, there's the mogul, there's the jump, that's the way that I'm going to go. I don't think, challenge, challenge, challenge. Otherwise, I'm going to hit every challenge. I'm going to hit every tree. I've never hit a tree yet. Foo, foo, foo. Good wood to knock on, by the way. That is the thought that we have to have. How do we see the challenge, but embrace the challenge? And when we have the difficult conversations, including sometimes with our own children, parents, grandparents, nieces, relatives, or our friends, or the people we thought who were our friends, and all of a sudden say something off color that we don't appreciate, how do we embrace the challenge and lean into it? Many of us have had these conversations when somebody says something that, whether they know or not, is anti-Semitic. We can say, oh, I heard that you said this. Like, I hear, what I'm hearing that you're saying is this, but this is how it makes me feel. And keep going into the conversation from that. Embrace the challenge and be excited by it. Also, once again, that is integral within Jewish thought. We like to argue. We like to answer a question with a question. In fact, we are taught to answer a question with a question. My rabbi is no closer to God than I am. In other faiths, the spiritual leaders are considered much more closer to God. Now, I'm not criticizing the other faiths, but I'm very proud to be Jewish. I'm very proud that we are all as holy as everybody else. We are all as spiritual, magical beings as everyone else. So when my rabbi will say something to me, I can disagree with her. And that's being Jewish. So we can disagree with our government, but support our government. Who talks about being pro, like the way we hear people talk about being pro or anti-Israel? Who says pro or anti-Mexican? Or pro or anti-German? Or pro or anti-Colombian? Or pro or anti-Egyptian? Why have we allowed this language to be there? So when, and this happens a lot because, as I told you, I am obviously Zionist and openly Jewish, according to the narrative of others, but I've embraced that narrative because it's true. When people have said, well, how could you do this because of what's happening in Israel, this, and this, and I said, well, you're American. How could you have stormed the Capitol on January 6th? How could you take women's right to choose what they do with their body? And they said, well, I wasn't part of that. I said, but you're American. How could you vote this person into power or that person into power? They said, well, I didn't vote for that person. I said, well, shouldn't you be anti-American? Israel is a democratic country. You don't have to agree with everything it does in order to support the democratic country and to support the fact that our people have survived and our people have been resilient and we've achieved reestablishing our homeland. Anyway, I could talk forever, and I do often talk forever. It's my job. But one of my main focuses is to entertain, uplift, and inspire, and how we can focus on the positive spin of what we do, even when things are hard. And when things are hard, it means that we have recognized our vulnerability. Vulnerability is a beautiful thing. As a storyteller, vulnerability is compelling. Vulnerability is the story. What stories do you know about perfection? Oh, here's a story about a perfect person who did perfect things and everything was perfect. It's going to be 3 sentences, or maybe a children's book. That's not interesting. But the vulnerability and the weakness is. The failures are compelling. You cannot be brave and you cannot be courageous if you're not afraid. If you don't understand that weakness is part of your being. That you might fall off your horse. That you might stumble. That you might be wrong. Know that you can be wrong. In order to be right, you must know that you have been wrong, that you might be wrong again, but you want to be progressive enough towards the future forward movement and improve yourself. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you must pursue. Tikkun olam, tikkun nefesh, tikkun guf, repairing of the world, repairing of the body, repairing of the soul. These are all forward movement things, recognizing that we can be wrong. Our society has this obsession with being afraid of making mistakes. Our children are taught this in the school. Don't make a mistake. Just regurgitate what you were taught. Be a carbon copy of whatever you were taught. That is the antithesis to Jewish thought. Oh, you said this? Interesting. I'm going to think about it. Maybe I'm going to disagree. Dafka, I might disagree with you as I continue to listen to you, and then I might agree with you. But we cannot be the carbon copies. We need to allow our Jewish people to be diverse, to be unique. One of the big concepts that I'm exploring these days is how we can be unified without uniformity. That is what our Jewish people need. No matter if you're Republican or Democrat, Jewish or Jewish, or Israeli or American or who knows where, or practicing Jewish or just philosophically, culturally Jewish. We need to acknowledge each other, respect each other, and thank each other for being out and proud and wearing that Magen David and representing who we are. Saying, thank you. I saw you say that or do that or use that Yiddish word, or you cooked a Jewish Moroccan recipe. I recognize that. That's all you have to say. Give each other the gold star to celebrate our pride and our identity. And that is how we win, and that is how we are resilient. I thank you all for coming today.